Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Juma Mubarak. By the time this is out, it will probably be long after that, but I still wanted to give that blessing. We need all the blessings we can get these days. So, how are you? How are you doing? How's your family? I really hope well. Let me know, and please do not hesitate to reach out. In the dream videos, I didn't mention, often we may see somebody we know in a dream and we're curious, why am I seeing them? What does that mean? And we may have someone in our dreams because they're thinking about us. That is, it just follows that you would then reach out to them. Something like telepathy, right? And there are examples with the Prophet, even Salam, God bless his soul and grant him peace. A lot of times when we think of Muslims, that's the number one thing we think of is hijab. And there's a whole book on it about more than hijab, or it's not about the burqa, things like that, because we tend to hyper focus on this headpiece. And we forget the symbolism of what's beneath. And I think as a Black American in particular, an African American woman with 4C hair, yes, I'm not going to be too descriptive for obvious reasons. There's a lot that goes into hair. And there's a lot of wisdom behind the hijab and having it covered. And so one of the biggest and most obvious reasons is because of modesty. Say that you have your hair really well kept, really beautiful. It's one of the most attractive features on a human is their hair. And hair, in a general sense, symbolizes power. There's a great video on the spirituality of Locs, because yes, I had locks for a good 6 years. And actually check with the sheikh to see, is this allowed? Like, is this gonna inhibit my ghusl? Things like that, because there's a lot of prejudice perceptions out there that it is just gonna nullify the wudu. To be fair, I combed out my locks very recently, and at first I was very hesitant to the idea. I didn't like it. I very much was in love with the length of my locks and their growth and just the whole journey of them. And learning about the spirituality of them only added to that. So for one, hair, the tighter the hair, the bigger the connection is one of the points that this woman made. And how we think about a light bulb and how it spirals and it's like the coils are tight. It's a conductor for energy, and that's energy that's negative, experiences, all kinds of thoughts. Even the hairdresser who does our hair, the people who touch our hair are said to transmit energy. That's why there's things called Reiki, where people literally use the power of their touch in order to heal. And likewise, people can use the power of their touch to do very harmful and damaging things. It's an inappropriate touch that is damaging. So touch is so powerful, and when it comes to the hair, there's no exception. So it's transmitting that. The hair is a transmitter. And again, the tighter the coil, the easier it is to transmit that. Likewise, the higher up the hair is, the more energy it can conduct. And this is really interesting in tandem with the hadith that women are not to wear their hijabs like high on their head like a camel, because it's like too much power. But then again, that hadith is debatable. So that's why it's no issue for women to do that. And Seeker's Guidance has a really good article on that, I believe. So getting back to the spirituality of the hair itself, I personally feel that when I started combing out the locks, I felt that it was a cleanse. It was an energy cleanse. My power was being softened, because dreads can be very hard, very rough, and very tough. And there's a time for that for me in my life. And of course, it did not nullify the wudu, because we know that even though they can get dirt and dust, and like the looser your hair, for instance, like white people's hair has to get very, very dirty and oily for them to hold the locks. Black Americans, African Americans, or people with 4C hair have to have less residue and buildup. There's still going to be that. And as I was combing them out, days and weeks on end, it took forever. I swear I have battle scars to prove it from the rat tail comb, just combing and shedding all this hair. At least 10 toiletfuls full of it. SubhanAllah, like, it just was so refreshing to actually have somebody go through and soften it and wash it and care for it and start fresh, right on the brink of Muharram, SubhanAllah. So, but just like any part of our body or anything, when we cleanse it, it's inward and outward. It has an inward and an outward effect as well. So this is just something to bear in mind across the board. Everything has a zahir and a batin. an apparent form and an inner form, and a literal form and a more symbolic meaning to it. And hair is just one of those things that is so very powerful in that way. So if you have a dream about hair, don't ignore it. Ibn Siddiq's Dictionary of Dreams was mentioned before. Also, when it comes to hijab, don't just dismiss it as just a rag or a scarf or something that your religion commands you to do. The hijab is very, very sacred, and that it is a reminder that there's something higher than ourselves, and at the same time touches this most powerful thing, our own hair. As powerful as the hair is, still there's something higher than that. There's something more powerful than that, and that's what the hijab symbolizes. And the turban, which the Prophet ﷺ would wear, in the shape of a meme, actually, still so much symbolism in that, and that's a whole nother topic for another day. But just know that there is some rich meaning packed into the headpiece and the head covering, not just for women, but for men. And I want to leave on this note, and we've said it in a different video, but it's worth repeating by Dr. Umar Farouk Abdullah, that when we want to honor a thing, then we cover it, just like a present or a candy. And I know this is such an outdated analogy, but it's true. We wrap it, and it just adds to the beauty of it. It really does. If it's not beautiful, there's no point in wrapping it. I mean, maybe you might wrap it to cover it and care. And a lot of people do. Their hair will be a hot mess, and they wear a cap or hijab, whatever. Trust me, I'm not saying I'm beyond that. But at the same time, the point is to have this elevation of what is already perfected, to have our hair groomed and neat and clean. That's the bottom line. It's not about having the most, long or thick or whatever hair. If it's clean, if it's groomed, this is the prophetic tradition. This is the sunnah. This is beautiful. This is what beauty is. And it's another wisdom that, for women in particular, that we are to cover our hair, because we see already, even with women being able to show their hair, many women will not, because it just messes up the playing field when you have some women who have naturally more challenging hair, or maybe they have thicker hair or more hair and harder to deal with, versus someone whose hair is naturally in a very, simple style, very easy to manage. This is something that can be, a bit tricky to manage as well. So these are just some thoughts off the top of my head. If you have anything to add or share regarding the spirituality of hair, please do not hesitate to enlighten us and share with the community. We need to know these things. This is the type of information that supports us in our growth and in our faith. And so this is your daily dose of Iman vitamins. I hope that you found something beneficial in it. And if so, please do be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe, share with someone else who can use it. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of your families. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.